Good morning, Callie. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Ali. Lovely to see you.
And you. So Callie very kindly agreed to be interviewed for the school, for the CPHT schools. And so just going to introduce you very quickly, and then we can get on to grilling you about life as a clinical hypnotherapist, solution focused therapist. Okay, cool. So for everyone who doesn't already know her, who are you anyway that don't know Callie? She is a clinical hypnotherapist. She's also a supervisor for other hypnotherapists, and she's an assistant lecturer, and she is director of associates for Inspired to Change. Callie lives out in the wilds, has beautiful animals. It's basically like the good life. It's amazing. And her business runs pretty much around the animals, really, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Callie, just kind of moving on from that, what else is there? Is there anything else to kind of add to that intro? Because I kind of do a general one, but is there anything else to add into that?
I suppose one of the other things that I do a lot of, as well as going out and speaking, not just, I guess I go and do the usual kind of networking stuff, but I also do workshops in schools, not for the children, but for the parents. Really, because of my own experience of anxiety as a child, when you kind of think back, what difference would it have made to me if I'd have understood anxiety when I was 6 or 7? Probably a bit, but actually what would have made a real difference when I was that age is if the grown-ups around me had understood anxiety. So that's a real passion for me, going into schools, speaking to parents, speaking to teachers. So that's another thing that I do as well.
I knew there was, and that's why I asked, because I always know there's always some other little thing that we all have going, our little passion project, isn't there? So, yeah. Fabulous. How do you find that?
Just is amazing. I think it's one of those things where it's, you pick up the odd client from it, but actually what's more important to me is that I get to engage with people who would never be a client of mine. So I get to make a difference to them. They're never going to be a client, they're never going to come and see me, but in those couple of hours, I have massive mindset shifts. So from some lady the other day stuck her hand up and said, why are you telling me all this stuff about how the brain works? I can just take a tablet and it shuts it up. And by the end of the workshop, she was completely converted to the fact that actually, she ought to take a bit more responsibility and start doing stuff herself. So being able to reach those kind of people, I think is really amazing. But seeing the difference in the teachers as well.
Sneaky, I like it.
I always get asked back, which is a good sign.
Oh, that's fantastic. Good stuff. So, Callie, where are you based so people know where you are in the country?
So I am in a tiny weeny little village in East Northamptonshire. So I'm almost pretty much in the centre of the country. And I guess what's interesting, I suppose, for a lot of people is that I do practice out of a tiny village and I have no problem getting clients. I have a very busy practice and I practice from home. This is my therapy room that we're in at the moment. So you're actually not getting to see the scene that my clients would see, but this is my therapy room and I chose to work at home for a few different reasons, not just the animals, although maybe but because really I chose to specialise in anxiety. And again, from my own personal experience as a previously anxious person, going and sitting in waiting rooms, I used to find really intimidating. And so coming into a home environment makes a real difference. And people tell me that they'd much prefer to come here. I'm in a lucky position where I have this room. People coming through the front door, they come straight in this room and there's a toilet immediately opposite, so they don't need to go anywhere else in the house. And it just seems to work really, really well. So
yeah. And so you kind of talked a bit about kind of how you used to be. How did you kind of discover hypnotherapy, solution focused hypnotherapy? What was your kind of journey to training?
Well, it's interesting because I would never have put myself as a stressed or anxious person because I didn't really understand what it was. And it was only when my body stopped me, because you know often you get people say that, you know what, if you're not going to stop, your body will find a way of making you stop, and that's what happened to me. So I'm a kind of 150 mile an hour girl, not so much in my car but just in my life. That's just how I am. I'm always like 10 steps ahead of myself, always working way harder than I ever needed to. and eventually the only thing that would stop me was illness. And so I was diagnosed with ME. I was totally knocked off my feet. I had a bad virus before Christmas and just never recovered from it, basically. I'd managed to go back to work for a day and then was off for another week. Then I'd go back for a week, then I'd be off for another 2 weeks. And this cycle just went on and on and on. And the NHS wasn't really in a position to be able to help me. They don't really get chronic illnesses very well. All that was being offered to me was antidepressants, which I refused to take because I knew that wasn't the problem. I felt down because I was ill and couldn't do the things I normally did. I wasn't not able to do those things because I was down, and so it didn't seem like a real solution to me. So I started to look for my own solutions. So I guess I've always been a bit solution focused at heart. And I did a lot of work on the nutrition side of things. You know, you are what you eat. And I've been to see, I was paying a fortune for a nutritionist, for a homeopath, for a kinesiologist, all of these things. And I was getting some progress. So I was feeling well enough to go back to work.
Yeah.
And then, as I was going back to work, I bumped into the infamous Gary Johannes, who I used to know from networking from our previous lives. And I knew Gary well enough that he looked at me and went, "Oh, I've not seen you for ages. You look like crap."
Nice.
Thanks, Gary. You can always guarantee on Gary giving you a reality check. And so I explained to him what had been going on. And he explained to me that he'd retrained as a hypnotherapist since I last saw him. And once I picked myself up off the floor and thought, wow, that's a bit of a turnaround, he convinced me to go and have an initial consultation because he said that he thought he could help me.
Wow.
And I was really nervous, actually, because not just because it was Gary, but because I'd spent the last 2 years with doctors telling me it was all in here. I wasn't really unwell. Look at all these test results. They told me that there was nothing physically wrong with me, so it must all be in here. And here was a hypnotherapist telling me that they could help me. I was really a bit nervous I was going to get the same thing again. But actually, it was amazing because actually Gary was the first person who was able to sit me down and explain to me what was going on in my brain and why that was impacting what was going on in my body.
Wow.
And that for me was the first time where I had to accept the fact that I was a stressed and anxious person, and that stress and anxiety had impacted on me physically, not because I was imagining it, but because of the biological, chemical nature of what goes on when you're stressed and anxious.
Yeah.
And it was the last piece in the jigsaw puzzle for me in my recovery. It was just so fundamental in me understanding what had been going on, and more importantly, what I could do to change that, because I felt completely helpless all the way through. No one could offer me any way of helping me and making things better. And it felt totally out of my control. And for the first time, I felt like this was something that was within my control.
Yeah.
So the help that Gary gave me was just quite probably the best help that I had in all that time.
Wow.
And one of the things that I realised during that was that I couldn't carry on working the way I was, because that was the root of the problem. And if I just put myself straight back into work again in the same places, in the same kind of thing, I worked in the charity sector where very much you care a lot about what you do.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I don't care a lot about what I do now. Of course I do, but it's a very different environment. I was in the fundraising sector, so you could celebrate for 5 minutes when you got £1 million in, but suddenly where's the next million coming from? Because if that next million doesn't come in, your friend sitting over there is going to be made redundant. And so it was a very pressured kind of place to be in, even though it was, you were making a big difference. There was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I couldn't carry on doing that, and it's my husband's fault. Because every time I came back from a session with Gary, Mark would always be kind of like, tell me all about it. I'm fascinated about it. And I was telling him about this particular session I'd had, and he just turned around and he looked at me and went, "You should do this."
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was Mark. Oh, wow. Well, thanks, Mark, because that's awesome for the rest of us.
Well, that was it. Done deal. Went back to Gary, told him that, maybe I'd like to train. And he said, if you're going to train, there's only one place to train. And so he introduced me to Clifton Practice. And the rest is history.
It is indeed. So when you were training, did you train in London? Is that
I trained in London. It was the very first satellite school, because when I inquired about training, they still only had Bristol school. And I was all set to go to the Bristol course, and then they contacted me and said, Callie, we're about to open a London school. Did you want to go there? And I was like, yeah, fantastic, because didn't really make an awful lot of difference to me which place I went to, but I had more friends in London that I didn't see often enough that I thought it gave me an opportunity to get some interaction in as well.
Oh.
I don't know.
Yeah. And so when you were training, what was that like for you? Were there any kind of times where you thought, oh, I'm not sure about this?
I think it was more because I was still working full-time when I was training. And of course, still very much in recovering phase of the ME. And so for me, it was more of a mindset like, come on, you can do this because you've got this big enough goal. Because in my head, there was only one reason to train, and that was to set up my own practice and to step away from being an employed person. So I had control over my life and my lifestyle, and be well again. So that was my big goal. So I had a big goal. But I also knew I had challenges as far as, 1 weekend a month. My weekends were my time to try and restore my batteries. And I quickly realised that the training was more energising than draining.
Wow.
I was learning new stuff, and we all know now, like when you understand how the brain works, you know that when you're learning new stuff, your brain gets flooded with serotonin. All that lovely positive interaction, all that positive thinking, you cannot be in a bad place when you're there, and you learn so much about yourself and how to shift that mindset and take control of what's going on in here. But yeah, I was knackered. Of course, I was knackered. Everyone was knackered when they left after a solid weekend of training. But actually, that boosted me and helped me get through the week.
So do you think actually even the training was part of your recovery process then?
Definitely.
Wow.
Definitely. Yeah.
Wow. And then what was it like setting up in practice? How did you go through? Because you didn't just go boom, boom, did you? You actually did a really nice staggered changeover. You did it brilliantly.
Yeah, I think for me, kind of walking away from, I don't get me wrong, I loved my job. I did love my job. I was doing it I was leaving not because I didn't love my job. I was leaving because actually it was no longer serving me. And so I didn't have, I suppose, that real kind of, I've got to get out of here. And to have some guaranteed money coming in actually reduced stress, which I thought was a good thing. So I went part-time. Actually, what I did first of all was I did every fortnight I had a day off. So we did it like that. So we gradually reduced my hours. So every fortnight there was a day that I wasn't in employment, and I was starting to build my business. And then that went down to I had a day a week, and then I was splitting it half and half, so 2.5 days working, 2.5 days in my practice. And what I focused on more in that time was less about seeing clients and more about building the business and the marketing and getting out there. So I organised the day I wasn't at work to be a day where I could go to a networking group and start to build my visibility. So yeah.
Tell me more about that business building bit, because that's the bit that we often gets missed out with training, isn't it? So what was kind of important about that?
I think for me, I was, because of the work that I did, I worked in the charities and I worked in the business side of things. So I was matching up the local companies with the charity to raise money. So I was well known in the business sector, on the networking circuit, I suppose, as Caroline, who works for the Wildlife Trust, and this is what she does. And so I kind of needed to shift what everyone else thought of me. Well, not thought of me, but what they saw as what I did.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I just kind of got my qualifications, got my certificates on the wall, lovely, thank you, brilliant, sit back here and wait for people to knock on the door, it's not going to happen. So I knew I had to get out there and start talking to people. And I also knew from when I was getting case study clients that actually, do you know what, there's a lot of people out there just like I was who are like, hypnotherapy, not sure about that. I thought I need to change that, because otherwise no one's going to come to get my help. So really for me it was all about going out there and changing people's perception about hypnotherapy so that I could create an environment where my business could thrive.
Nice.
Thanks.
And where's business now? What's it like now?
So business now, last year I qualified. So in November, it was 5 years since I qualified, and which kind of snuck up on me. It's like, how the hell did that happen? And I looked back at the goals I set myself, and I realised I'd achieved them. Every single one of them.
Wow.
And I also realised that what was happening was what I was told was going to happen, which I also didn't believe, I suppose, was that by the time you've been in business this long, 70% of your client base comes through referral.
Yeah.
So all of that hard work that I put in at the front end, getting myself known, building a reputation, helping people to know what hypnotherapy can do for you, and getting my clients in, I know that every single one of those clients that had a good experience with me is likely to refer me to at least another 4 or 5 people.
Yeah.
And I'm still getting that now. So I get, actually if I look at my client list for this week, I usually see on average somewhere about kind of like 15 to 20 clients a week, including initial consultations.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at this week's, I'd say, I think that's 70% of comes some way through referrals.
Yeah.
That's pretty much reflected in this week.
Yeah, and kind of this far down the line, it's the person who was referred. So it's almost like that next generation or two.
Yeah. It's almost
down,
like a family tree. You can see
yeah.
where they come from. Yeah.
Like little ripples in a pond almost, isn't it?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what's the plan going forward?
A lot more of the same. I love working with my clients. I absolutely love that client time. And if I don't have it, I notice that I don't have it. I start a little bit agitated. It's like, what's going on? Why am I feeling a bit, It's like, I'm not seeing any clients this week. So I make sure that I see all of my clients in 3 days. And then I have the other days for doing more work. But what's next for me is the fact that I can only see so many clients in those 3 days. So what's really, really important for me is to help. So you mentioned at the beginning, I'm Director of Associates at Inspired to Change, which for those of you who don't know, Inspired to Change has associates across the UK, practicing Solution Focused, having trained through Clifton. And so for me to help those associates build their business, that means that they can see more people, which means that I am in turn helping more people. So coaching and mentoring them and helping them to grow their business in the way that I have done, so that they can have not just the business they want, but the lifestyle. Because that's, when you run your own business, it is your lifestyle. And so your goals and your aims for what you want it to be like and feel like are going to very much be intertwined.
Yeah.
So I feel very much like I'm there. I've got that. I'm, from a physical point of view, I'm I'm as well as I've ever been. And my lifestyle that I can have because of the business I've built allows me to be that well.
Yeah.
And helping other therapists to be able to do that just is brilliant for me. But it's knowing the impact that has. I think there's a very wise lady that I know who's there you are, right in front of me, Ali Hollands, who once said that for every hypnotherapist you help, you're impacting. God, I can't remember what the figure was.
I can't remember, but it was a huge amount, wasn't it? I remember
awesome.
Very happy about that.
So that's kind of for me, it is a really important part of how I split my time.
So my last question that I ask everyone is, thinking back to that you that hadn't quite yet signed up, what would you tell them? You
can do it. Because still a part of me. Do you know what? If Gary Johannes hadn't been there and literally frog marched me to sign up, I think there would have still been a part of me that thought, no, it sounds like a nice idea, but it's probably not doable.
Wow.
Not the training to be a hypnotherapist. I've trained to do all sorts of different things and done all sorts of lovely kind of, training and learning. But knowing that you can do this, you can make a living out of this. This is a career. It's not a hobby. It's a career. Yeah. This isn't a little something I do on the side. This is my business. And that it doesn't have to be hard work. Do you know what? The work I was doing before made a huge difference, but bloody hell, I felt like a hamster on a wheel. It was such hard work, every little thing. And when you realise that work that makes a difference doesn't have to completely drain you and knock you off your feet, it's like, that's like a seismic shift.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, Callie, thank you. And I'm sure younger Callie would have loved to have heard that, and would probably not have believed you quite, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, I know. And it is that thing. It's like, I think that's amazing, that hard work, that valuable work doesn't necessarily have to be hard work, and you don't have to break to do it. I think that's an amazing, as you say, a seismic shift. That's a real revelation for a lot of people, because we're brought up thinking work has to be work, and if you're not battered at the end of it, then did you really do your best?
Yeah.
Whereas, as we know, and also we teach our clients, isn't it, that sometimes working, that whole adage, work smarter, but actually we really do teach people to work smarter, because we teach them to, use their actual brain to do it, to leverage the power.
And I love that. I think that is reinforced for us. Every single client we see. Yeah. Reinforces us. Every client I see, I just waved off a client before I saw you this morning, and it's just like, it's already lifted my day. Every client I see energizes me and makes me feel better, and reminds me about what I need to be doing to be my best as well. Yeah, which I think is important for us, isn't it, as therapists, that we do need to be kind of how we would want our clients to be. Yeah. Amazing. Well, Callie, thank you very much for today. I really appreciate your time. And obviously, anyone who's thinking of signing up or wants to find out a little bit more, you can have a little stalk of Callie, because I'll put her links in the description, so you can go and see what she gets up to, and also some links for the schools, but obviously you know how to get in touch with us too. So, Callie, thank you very much. Thank you. Press stop on the recording here. Oh, that was not what I planned to do. Wrong button. Live recording. So I'm just going to stop recording now and see you guys another time. Thanks. Yeah.